see it's on, it's just not. I think you can hear me now.
I feel like I'm going to ignore people over there.
Okay, we think we're alive and on, and it's Sunday afternoon. Welcome, everyone. We are so excited to see you all. This is the opening event for TWA for this fall, and we're welcoming everyone because you're all smiling, we have electricity, and the weather's halfway decent. It's not raining, right? Step one. So welcome. We're excited to see you. We're really excited for this program. And we have lots of things to share. So Ina's going to come and share. And I'm forgetting one thing. Oh, I should introduce myself. My apologies. I'm Jeannie Sitterman-Krager, co-president this year of TWA. And Ina is my co-president.
Hi. Of course, we're thrilled to see all of you here today. What a nice turnout in honor of Terry and what she's going to talk to us about today. If you are not a member of TWA at this point, we encourage you to join us. We do all kinds of wonderful things here at the Temple. Our dues are $45 a year, and there will be Janice Bilchik sitting at the table as you walk out, ready to take your membership. So please join us. We have many things that will be going on this year. Our next event, well, first of all, the next thing that we're going to be starting is our Rosh Hodesh, under the guidance of Rabbi Dadoun, who is just marvelous. Those of you that have been part of this before know that it's just an absolutely wonderful thing to be part of. So one of the things that we are very proud about is that we contribute to the temple. We contribute in many ways to the temple. And one of the things that has been requested is that Jane Rothstein, our wonderful librarian archivist here at the temple, has made a request from TWA to improve the quality of the library where the children are concerned. She needs some things for the teachers, the parents, and the children. And we are granting that request, and TWA is donating $2,850 to the library for that. So with that, I would like to introduce our program chairperson for the day, she and her co-president, program vice president. You're on.
Hi, I'm Jill Davidson. I'm coach vice president with Anna Boardman in the back of programming for TWA, and we also co-chaired this, our opening event, and we are excited to have you all here. It is a great honor for me to introduce Jane Rothstein, before I hit the table, the Temple's librarian and archivist here, and also a big fan of graphic novels, from what I understand. I was very excited for the opportunity to interview Terry Livingston, whom I'm also excited to introduce as a best-selling New York Times best-selling author of the popular illustrated middle grade series Emmy and Friends, and she was previously the Reuben Award-winning cartoonist of the syndicated daily comic strip The Pajama Diaries, as well as an award-winning humorous card writer for American Greetings. And I'm also pleased to introduce her as my friend, as our children are friends at college also. So Terry and Jane, I'd love to kick it off to you guys.
Thanks, Jill. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody, for coming. And once again, thank you to TWA for sponsoring this and for your generous grant to the library. It was much appreciated, and hopefully it will make things a lot more bright and welcoming and organized, and our kids will rush in to come and use the space. I'm so excited to talk with Terry today. Not just because I love graphic novels, but I love Emmy and Friends. It is a great series. I know my nieces read several of the books when they were younger, before the oldest one got old enough to go to college last week. So I'm just happy to talk with you today. Terry.
Thank you.
Welcome.
great to be here, and I might have to come raid the library as well.
Happy to have you all the time, anytime. So I'm just gonna, I have a little PowerPoint. See if I use it all. I don't really know. I loved all the images that Terry sent me, so I was like, oh, I would use that one. And there might not be enough time, but we'll see. So we're getting to know Terry. There's actually a picture she does use on her website, so it's out in the public.
It is free reign.
So I know that you started drawing as a kid. You used some really fun images from your youthful experiences in the back of one of the books in the series, Truly Tyler. And I also read that you, at one point, repurposed your brother's Archie comics to create your own. So, can you talk to us about, how you got into drawing and then how you got into comics and cartooning and... Yeah.
Sure. Well, if you want to start there, that's a great place to start. Well, if we want to go back further, my mom used to always joke how I was born with a drawing pen in my hand. Obviously that's just, she was not wrong. I can't remember when I didn't draw. And this is kind of funny. My dad co-owned a paper supply company when I was growing up. For those of you who are fans of the show The Office, that was my dad. I mean, his company was actually in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, which was 20 minutes away from Scranton. So it was the Dunder Mifflin original. And that meant that I had free paper all the time and pens and everything. And I was horrible. I must have killed so many trees growing up because he would bring home these scratch pads, and I'd tear through them. I'd draw 2 lines and rip, and it was, regrets. But anyway, thank you. And then eventually, I would start really drawing and creating my own cartoon characters and coming up with my own little cast of characters. I was a huge fan of the comic strip Peanuts by Charles Schulz, and I would create ensemble casts kind of like that, except usually they were girls. And I would just, keep going as I got older. And at the same time, I would sneak into my poor big brother's room, and I would steal his collection of Archie comics and Mad magazines and comic strip collections. And I didn't just stop there. I would take his Archies, and I would remember that whiteout. That's liquid corrector. Yeah, back in the day, I would take whiteout, and I would actually white out the dialogue in those Archie comic books, and I'd write in my own dialogue, and then I'd modify the characters' wardrobes. I don't know what I was doing, but apparently I was onto something. I wanted to create my own world, so it all began with theft and vandalism, and I don't condone that, but yeah, and then. Eventually I kept creating more and more comic strips. I did them for fun on my own. I also did them as school assignments and things like that. So it just never stopped. I never stopped it.
Did you have any other favorite cartoon artists besides Peanuts and the great Charles Schulz?
Of course, yeah. I was pretty eclectic, actually, and I still am. I celebrate comics of all kinds, whether they're underground comics or more mainstream. I love them all. I still have a huge collection of comic books and graphic novels for all ages. Growing up, it was definitely Charles Schulz when I was a kid. He was the be-all, end-all for me. As I got older and my world expanded a little bit more, I really liked Burke Breathed, who did Bloom County, that comic strip, if anyone remembers. When I was in college, I became a huge fan of Linda Berry. Of course, and she was this huge underground cartoonist, and she is amazing. I actually have had the opportunity to meet her, and my husband can attest to this because we met her at a comics kind of convention, and where she was speaking, and I remember when it was my turn to meet her when we were in line, I broke down in tears. It was like the last reaction I thought I would ever have, and I couldn't speak. And she was so sweet, and she gave me a hug, and yeah, that was a lasting impression I made on her.
So your first big time gig was through American Greetings here in the Cleveland area, and we know American Greetings launched a number of amazing cartoonists and comics writers, and still has quite a stable and lots of characters who started out in comics also migrated to American Greetings cards. So can you talk about your experiences there and what you learned from cartooning for cards? And I'll bring up some of your cards.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Love that one. Nurse, he's
You guys
losing
can
his
see.
candy.
I don't have too many card samples, unfortunately, and most of them are not. They're kind of off color. That's a nice way of saying it. So I was trying to dig up some clean ones.
I didn't do that.
Yeah, American Greetings was great. It was so I was hired. I was hired by them right after I graduated college. It was interesting. I didn't quite know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to become a cartoonist when I was in college. That was my great goal, was to become a syndicated cartoonist. But in the process of getting there, I kind of needed a job. I needed a regular paying job while I tried to become a syndicated cartoonist. So I remember in school, Hallmark sent representatives to just come and possibly recruit students, and I kept that in mind. And when I graduated, there was a huge recession, and no one was really hiring. That was 1992. I'm really dating myself now, but I remembered that they normally would come and try and recruit seniors, and I kept that in mind, and I started to apply to different greeting card companies. There were definitely more back in the day, and I was eventually hired by American Greetings, not as an artist. I originally applied as an artist, but they were looking more for writers, for humorous card writers, and I just remember saying, sure, I can do that. Why not? and they gave me an assignment, and somehow they decided I was good enough, and it was quite humbling though, because I remember when I first got there, I was kind of haughty. I'm like, oh, I could do this. This is nothing. I want to be a cartoonist. That involves writing. And I was completely humbled because the writers there were so amazing and so talented, and many years of just trying to catch up. But then I felt like I was kind of one of them, and it was great because it really helped hone my writing skills as well as my and this is really important, my editing skills. It kind of taught me brevity in writing and who my audience was, and it did help hone my illustration skills as well, because even though I was hired primarily as a writer, every once in a while I would illustrate my own cards. So and I ended up developing a card line of my own that was called Sketch, and it ended up doing really well. It ran for, I want to say, maybe 7 or 8 years, and for all I know, there's still one floating out there somewhere in a card rack. I have no idea, possibly with different characters, but yeah, it was, it had its ups and downs, but for the most part, it was a great place to work, and I was there. I was working in-house there, I think, for 10 years, and I started having kids and started going part-time, then part-time on contract, then my contract kept dwindling down until they finally said, okay, I think that's enough.
I just brought up, you did general cards, and you also did a few Jewish cards, so I brought some of that.
Actually, I co-wrote that one with another Jewish card writer. So,
I love that one because it's so sweet.
Yeah, I love that one.
And then this one, of course, which is like...
Do you want me to read it?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if people in back could see it. Okay, so this says, "Oi, that sun, look at me. I'm schwitzing like a schmendrick. God forbid anyone should help me out here. No, they'll all just let me melt till I'm nothing but a pile of schmutz. Sniff, but that's okay. That's okay. Frosty the Snowmensch." My voice acting skills aren't what they should be. But.
Pretty good. Oh, it reminds me of the bit from Mel Brooks that did the 2,000-year-old man. No, it's okay. I don't need to come into the cave. It's all right. It's raining. I'll sit out here. It's all right. That's what I saw. I was like,
it's very
I
universal.
recognize that style of Jewish humor.
I think I wrote several cards like that. I think I was on a roll for a while.
And yeah, so I talked to you about this, the way that creating a card is like creating a very small story. Mm-hmm. So with choosing the words and choosing the images and having to be concise about it. Yeah,
for sure.
I love that.
Thanks.
So were you but you are still developing a comic strip when you were there?
Yes, little known to my managers at the time. On the side, on and off, I want to say for about 10 years. It took a while. I was trying to get syndicated, which is just a fancy way of saying trying to break into the newspaper funny pages as a creator, comics creator.
Get them published in all newspapers all over the country, not just the Plain Dealer.
Right. Yeah. So actually, that kind of happened in baby steps. So I remember I submitted a few different ideas. You have to submit about, or back during this time, we would have to submit about a month's worth of comic strip samples. So I think that was, I don't know, like 24 dailies and 4 Sundays or something like that, or whatever makes up a month. I can't do the math for 30 days. So, and then you would package it in this fancy little envelope, and you would send it off, and then you would promptly get rejected, because you always got rejected. But I think maybe each of the large syndicates, there were also more back in the day, but they would maybe take on 2 or 3 comic strips per year. So the odds of making it, and they would get, of course, thousands of submissions just per week. And it was harder to break into the funny pages as a cartoonist than it was to break into Hollywood as an actor, if you want to know the odds. So yeah, it was, but I was very determined. and I think it was by my 3rd try, I ended up getting a weekly contract. Mm-hmm. So it was syndicated not on a daily basis, but through weekly newspapers. And it was this comic strip called Got a Life, and it kind of echoed my own life. It was sort of a precursor to Pajama Diaries, where it was about newlyweds who were just starting their lives out together, and the illustrations were god-awful. They were horrendous. I was so out of practice with my artwork because I was primarily writing for American Greetings at this point, and I hadn't been, using my artistic skills in a while. So yeah, the illustrations were terrible, but the writing was not bad. and it was definitely akin to Pajama Diaries. It was I think that's where its strength was lying. And I remember talking to the editor at the time, who told me that it was just a little too similar to other comic strips that were syndicated on a daily basis, but he thought it was strong enough to do weekly. So it was a great stepping stone for me. Little beknownst to me at the time. Yeah, little did I know. But it really taught me to appreciate the deadline. I mean, it was a weekly deadline. It wasn't a daily deadline, but it gave me a peek into what that would be like and whether or not I really wanted to do that. So, and it was great too. It was great for time management, because by this time I just had my kids, I think, when it finally got published. And so I was kind of juggling these babies and doing that once a week, and then my American Greetings job, I think, was I don't know, like 3 times a week maybe, and it was a lot of juggling, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So that's when I knew I really wanted to try for a daily strip. So I ended up ending the strip on my own terms about 2 years later, and kind of took a step back and started to figure out what I wanted to do for an idea for a daily strip. And I couldn't think of anything. Meanwhile, I've got like these 2 little kids, and I'm trying to work. I'm trying to juggle them. I'm starting to read like mommy blogs, which were just coming out then. I was reading books like there was one called Motherhood in the Age of Anxiety, if anyone can recall that one, or I Don't Know How She Does It, which was fiction, and it was all about these moms who were struggling, and they, you know, they thought they could be everything to everybody, and they wanted, you know, they were trying to juggle the world and be super mom, and of course that never happens.
And do everything perfectly.
Yeah, do everything perfectly, exactly. And I'm like, oh my God, there it is. There's the comic strip. I'm living it.
So then Pajama Diaries you developed, and it's a family like yours, the Kaplans.
Right. And I wanted to keep it very true to life. It was very autobiographical, so of course it became a Jewish family.
Right.
So yeah, and I didn't focus on that all the time, but it was fun when I did. Yes.
Yeah, and I love that, you know, it's very much focuses on the main character, the mom, Jill Kaplan, who, as we can see here, is, you can see the choices on the refrigerator: water, ice, vodka, you know.
I've had quite a few requests for that refrigerator.
And I think one of the like mommy blogosphere things was all about like, you can do this. It was sort of Martha Stewart meets like, you know, daily mommy stress, you know. So I love one of the characters that you're one of your neighbors. You call her Perfectville. Perfectville.
Yeah, I wanted to use Pleasantville, but it was taken.
Yeah,
obviously. But
yeah. So Perfectville. This is like. Do you want to read this? Do you want to read this? So Perfectville's Jill is in the blue shirt, and Perfectville is the woman there
with the pug. That was when pugs were very in.
Yeah. So Perfectville says, "So what are your kids up to this summer?" And Jill says, "Jess is at camp, and Amy is selling froyo. And yours? Oh, they're teaching English to impoverished kids in South America." Oh, and Jill says, "Oh, I'm sure that'll look good on college applications too." And Perfectville says, "Did I mention they're blind and deaf?"
Yes. Perfectville is so very over the top.
Very, very. But, you know, and then I had to put this in.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah.
Do you want me to read this one?
Yeah.
We could take turns.
Yeah.
By day, she's a chic fashionista dressed to the nines for client meetings and presentations. By night, she whips off her elegant facade, transforming into an alter ego. Who is she? A superhero? A master of disguise? No, she's Schlub Woman. Oh, come on, I still wear that. When? The cobwebs are growing cobwebs. Yeah. This cartoon could get a little dirty, too. Off color.
That's okay.
It goes there. Actually, it's funny because it really pushed the envelope in the beginning, especially when I submitted my early strips, and I remember the editor was like, "This is why I really like this," and this is why I was able to get away with that for so long, because I did it from the start. I would have cartoonists come up to me all the time, like fellow cartoonists, and ask, "How do you get away with that?" And I said, "It's because they let me from the start." So it was expected. And then I would get hate mail, and then I would, keep doing it.
You would get hate mail because?
Because sometimes the strip would push the envelope a little. Yeah. It would get a little naughty.
I don't even think of this as naughty, but
no, it's not. This one's not bad. Yeah. There were worse, much worse.
And you did Pajama Diaries for a long time.
Almost the 14-year mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually just mentioning to someone today that I wanted to push it to the 15-year mark, but the kids' books started to get in the way, in a very good way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had to retire it a little early.
Yeah. But that's okay. They're actually still out there.
They are.
You can read your whole archive of Pajama Diaries.
You can. There's a website called comicskingdom.com. And my strips are still running from, I think they're now in the 2010s. but they started when I retired the strip. They started them from the start.
Right.
Again, started them from the start.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have
I need more
couple
coffee.
couple of collections that you
And there are a few.
purchased
Yep, there are
outside
a
after the
few
show.
collections outside. If anyone would like some, and happy to sign them.
So you wrote Pajama Diaries is very much from the perspective of Jill Kaplan and her husband, and then you ventured into the kidlit market.
Yes.
With your first graphic novel for kids, middle reader, as we call them in the
Right.
book business, Invisible Emmy. And so I wanted to know, like, how did you decide you wanted to work on that kind of project, and what was it like moving from an adult voice to a kid's voice, and different styles of illustration?
Sure. Yeah, it was a complete 180, wasn't it? Well, I've always wanted to write kids' books. That was always in the background, in the back of my mind. I originally thought I would start out with picture books. It was something I wanted to try before I got syndicated. But of course, syndication just takes up so much time. It's a daily deadline, so always on deadline. So I never really had the opportunity. But I think there was a point maybe about 10 years ago where I was talking to a cartoonist friend of mine, and he was mentioning that publishers were looking for books written by female authors with strong female characters in the vein of Diary of a Wimpy Kid or Big
Right.
Nate, those illustrated novels. This
Yes.
is before the big graphic novel
Right.
boom. And I, it got the wheels turning. And I didn't really have a lot of time to do it, but then I thought, you know what, I don't have a deadline. I can try it. I could take my time, and any spare time I had, that's what I did. So it probably took about a year and a half of just writing. And the way I did it was so unlike the way I write. I'm talking about Invisible Emmy, which was my first book for kids, and that was written so differently than the way I normally write books now, because normally I write with structure. I use an outline, and I pretty much know like the bullet points, the plot, and often how it ends. And but this time around, I was just, I just kind of freewheeled it. I just wanted to see if I could do it. And so I approached it kind of the same way I wrote the comic strip that is autobiographically, but instead of writing from my point of view as an adult, I kind of harken back to how I felt when I was about 12 or 13, and I definitely don't remember the day-to-day stuff I did back then, but I remember a lot of the feelings I had.
Right.
And that's where I started. I wrote from the viewpoint of, if you can believe it, a very shy, quiet kid, also very artistic. And that became the voice of Emmy. And as I wrote, it became kind of magic. It was amazing. A story began to form, and I even thought of a secondary main character to be sort of opposite of Emmy, and her name was Katie. And then I thought of a really cool kind of twist ending, and it worked out. And I joke, it's so funny because this is the thinnest book I have, and
Right.
it took me the longest to write. But then that's where it started,
Yeah.
and luckily it did really well. And I had a 2-book deal with this, so then I was forced to write a second one. Like, where do I go from here? And with the second one is called Positively Izzy, and that was such a wake-up call for me because, yep, it's a second one right there.
That one's got a good twist also.
Yeah, I think that one has no, I wouldn't say a better twist. It's just a different kind of
twist.
different twist. Yeah, it was interesting because with the second one, I thought I was going to continue a story about Emmy, but I realized that her story was kind of done for now. I thought that was, I don't know, I kind of wanted to move on and try a new character. Not that I wouldn't approach Emmy again, but I just thought her story was good for now.
Yeah.
And So what I ended up doing, there was a lot of trial and error with trying to figure out characters, but eventually I settled on Emmy's best friend, whose name is Brianna, not Izzy. Izzy is a whole new made-up character who kind of stars opposite Brianna. And so Brianna was already a very well-formed character, and as I wrote for her, her personality came out even more, and that's when I realized,
And these are all centered on one middle school, so they're mostly
Yes.
7th graders mostly
Yes.
in this time, and it's called Lakefront Middle School.
Lakefront
right?
Middle School, and I chose that purposely because of the area that we live in. So definitely wanted to get lake in there. And actually, in Pajama Diaries, I think they lived in oh God, what was the name of the town? Lake something. Lake something. I can't remember. My mind is blank. But Lakeview? Maybe it was Lakeview for the cemetery. I'm not quite sure. It might have been Lakeview. Yeah, that sounds right.
That sounds right.
Thank you. So yeah, this is Lakefront. And I used to get those completely mixed up as well when I was doing both the strip and the series.
Very similar. Yeah. I love it because it's like you draw, these characters are mostly all in the same school together.
Yes.
And, characters in all the others have first appeared in Invisible Emmy, and then they get their own stories as you go along. Do you want to talk about how some of those developed?
Sure. Yeah, I love talking about that. I get very excited talking about the characters. Once I brought Brianna into the forefront, and positively Izzy, as well as the character Izzy, who is completely made up, I realized this is what I like to do. I like to create new characters, and it's a huge challenge, obviously, because you really have to differentiate each character. They have to be their own people. They have to be all fleshed out. But it's also a very fun challenge for me too, and it keeps it very interesting for me. It definitely keeps the writing more interesting, and I think sometimes it keeps it interesting for the readers too, because they might identify with one character maybe more than another, and I hear from kids too about that, about who they identify with sometimes, and I always it's funny because I now I've always taken suggestions for main characters, but I made it a little official, I think, with my last book. Was it Sarah? With Surprisingly Sarah. I think I in the back of the book I mentioned, keep the character suggestions coming, and now I'm deluged. There are a lot of character suggestions coming in, and it's mostly for one specific characters who I
won't talk about yet.
Well, I can, but
that's okay.
Yeah.
Keep us guessing. I wanted to. I don't want to go over our time, but I wanted to make sure we talked a little bit about Judaism and Jewish experience in the Pajama Diaries and in Emmy and Friends, because it's definitely there in both. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. These are all really fun. Oh my gosh. So both in Becoming Brianna and in Pajama Diaries, you have a bat mitzvah. You have, the main characters, and that is what Becoming Brianna is sort of focused on, is, at the beginning, her mother says, would you like to have, think about it. She comes from, her mother's Jewish and her father is not, and her parents are divorced, if I remember correctly. So she's like, do you want to have a bat mitzvah? I think it would be really meaningful to you. So Brianna's a bit of a brain and studies hard. So of course she has tons to do, and now she has to be like, oh, well, maybe I have to learn Hebrew, and I don't know if I want to do this. And so her struggles throughout the year. Why did you decide to do the bat mitzvah?
I had been thinking about it probably since the second book. I knew I wanted to write a story about a bat mitzvah because these characters are the perfect age. And there's such a diverse set of characters. They all come from so many different kinds of backgrounds, and I love creating a diverse set of characters, and with Brianna, and plus I knew the material, so I mean,
Right.
I've been through a bat mitzvah, my daughters have, my husband's been through a bar mitzvah, so we had this wealth of material to work from. And I had great resources too, because I had my rabbis and my cantor who helped me with the book as well. So and plus, I mean, it's like going through the process of becoming a bar and bat mitzvah. It's like rife with drama and conflict and and so much decision making, and you know it
From the sublime to the ridiculous.
Absolutely.
Right? So these are from Pajama Diaries, and they're like, you know, if Amy turns 12 next month, a year away from her bat mitzvah. So I started gathering a few ideas. Meet folder 1, chunk. And in the bottom
I have that
one-
folder. I swear I had that folder.
I'm sure you do. And then the next one, you know, they're trying to plan, you know, trying to get cards together, you know, but so there's that, but then there's also, you know, the kid who's preparing. And so this is from Brianna, and it's Hebrew for Dummies, a reference for the rest of us. And one of the things I love about your bat mitzvahs is your rabbi and cantor.
Yeah.
Who names we probably might all recognize.
Yeah. Well, I had help from not necessarily the cantor, but definitely our two rabbis. Our family belongs to Fairmount and Temple, and so I utilized both Rob Nosenchuk and Josh Caruso, our two wonderful rabbis, for help. And Rabbi Caruso helped me select and you know, sort of interpret the Torah portion that Brianna was going to do.
Right.
Words, read the words. For her bat mitzvah, and I created the bat mitzvah speech myself, but they really got the ball rolling and helped with the interpretation, and it was just tremendous help. And Rabbi Nosenchuk was the one who did both my girls' ceremonies, and so I created a character that I kind of aged him up a bit, but there was a purpose for that I can't remember.
Yeah,
but
he's in Pajama Diaries, and then he's also
yeah, he's not aged up in Pajama Diaries. He's,
and in the cantor is named Cantor Caruso Sager. I thought was an apt combination.
She doesn't really look like her, but
no, but that's okay.
But yeah,
And,
everyone got a mention. I think all the clergy got a mention.
Yes, they did. And I love Rabbi Nosenchuk in both of them because he has this kind of, you know, kidding relationship with the bat mitzvah girl.
Absolutely. And there's something in Becoming Brianna where where they're doing a selfie and they're kind of, you know, doing the Hulk moves, and that was real with both my kids.
I love it.
So I had to recreate that for Brianna.
Yeah, I thought that was so much fun.
Yeah.
And
well, I wanted this book to be not just for Jewish kids, but for everyone.
Right.
And I wanted to make it fun and real and modern and, you know, and also meaningful at the same time.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that was the purpose.
Yeah. This one in Pajama Diaries, the rabbi says, "Okay, ready to kick butt?" She says, "Okay." And then she's, "Wait, can rabbis say kick butt?" Well, only if they're as awesome as this one. So I love that. I love that depiction. It's really fun.
Thank you.
And I have so much I could ask you, but I know you wanted to do some drawing for people.
Oh, right.
And I'm sure people have, you know, questions. So I will do that over.
Sure.
We have,
Oh, there it is. Let me see if I can get out of this chair.
Can I bring it over to you, Terry?
Yeah. Oh, that's fine. Either way. In fact, let me dig out my. Is there a marker already? Right over there? Or, okay.
Some extra markers.
Extra markers. That works. Yeah. So I thought I'd just do a little drawing demo of some of my characters.
do you want to bring it around to the front? Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah, I will. Oops, sorry.
Kick That's okay. I'm so used to, so I do school visits, especially when each book comes out. So I'm so used to doing this. I'm used to holding a mic and holding a marker, and I'm terrible at drawing and talking, but I'm better than I used to be. So let me start off by, I think, you know what, I think it'd be fun to draw Jill from Pajama Diaries, just to start off, if I can remember how to draw her. It's been a while. But I always loved drawing Jill because she's got these great big old googly eyes. And then she's got kind of this like flowy face. Everything just kind of flows together really well. And hopefully everybody can see. I know it's hard to see. If you can't tell, I draw really, really fast. So this part will leave lots of room for questions because this won't take long at all. And I'll just draw her head. There's Jill. Not that Jill, this Jill. And there's Jill from Pajama Diaries. Oh my God, I miss drawing her. She's so easy to draw. Thank you. Okay, oh no, it's just like when I was a kid, wasting all this paper. I should probably leave some space. So from my kids' books, I love drawing the characters from my kids' books as well. But they're all different. So I'll draw my two newest characters. So my latest book is called Surprisingly Sarah, and it features the character Sarah and her best friend Leo, and I'll do a quick description of each of them. So this is where everything gets way out of proportion, by the way, because I'm used to drawing like this big when I draw with them. So this is Sarah. She is a very sweet girl. She's a little quiet, not terribly quiet. She's kind of a people pleaser, definitely based off of myself in that regard, and this is something I'm still trying to get over. And she's a little fashionista. She loves designing her own clothes and making her own creations with the help of her mom. Oh yeah, sure. She's about 13 years old. So all the characters, or I should say most of my characters are in 7th grade and 13 or around there. So I don't think it specifically says her age, but we'll just assume she's about 12 or 13. And I ran out of room. Look at her little skirt. She's wearing a skirt. So that's Sarah. And I have to say, this was such a fun book to write because it's a very different format that I work in. I always have mostly I have two characters, except for Becoming Brianna. And their chapters switch back and forth. In the case of Becoming Brianna, the chapters just switch between the past and the present. So it would be like 7 months leading up to the bat mitzvah, and then the present day would be the day of the bat mitzvah. And that was fun to kind of break that whole mold of the two different characters switching back and forth. But in this case, it's Sarah and Leo switching back and forth. And it's told in kind of like a, do you remember the movie Sliding Doors? Sort of in a sliding doors format, or a what-if scenario. So I have two what-if scenarios that Sarah's involved in, and consequently her best friend Leo also becomes entangled in. And the book takes you through the two different scenarios, and you get to see how each of those storylines wrap up. And it was just a fun, kind of unusual way for me to work. So that's a quick sketch of 3/4 of Sarah. Like I said, I work about this big, so when I try and do anything larger, yeah, things go awry. So this is Leo, and he's a great character. I really kind of fell in love with Leo as I wrote for him. He was one of those characters that kind of his personality kind of wrote itself. Actually, I don't even think that's what he looks like. It's been a while since I've worked with him. But he's like a very fun, very loyal kind of friend, and he's got this great quirky personality, and he also kind of expresses himself with clothes as well. And He goes to a private school, so he hates that because he has to wear a uniform and he can't like wear, really ridiculous clothes that he likes to wear. So instead, he kind of like rebels and wears theme socks and shows off his personality that way. So this looks nothing like him. This looks absolutely nothing like him. It looks like that. Sorry, I'm actually on the next book, and I'm doing the illustrations for that. So I think he's sort of a cross between one of the characters from the book I'm working on now and Leo. Yeah, that's about it. I got the nose right. He also looks like he's 18. So. Leo, question mark. Okay, we're done here. Okay, well, you get the gist. If you want to see Leo, there's Leo. There's Leo on the screen. But yeah, a little out of practice with him. So I hope you guys enjoyed that.
So we've got time for some questions. If you have a question, you want to raise your hand, I'll come over with the microphone.
Becoming Brianna was a PJ Library book, wasn't it? Can you talk about that?
Oh, sure, yeah. I love PJ Library. I've become deeply involved with PJ Library lately. So yes, PJ Library is an organization that distributes Jewish-based books to Jewish families throughout North America. And they branched off too. There's one in Israel now. I think there's one in other countries. I'm not quite sure. They're trying to keep expanding. And they even have a publishing arm now as well. But my books were published by HarperCollins, but they were distributed, they were picked up by PJ Libraries to be part of their program as well. And actually the book I'm working on now, the 8th one in this series, one of the characters happens to be also be Jewish and have more of a, she's not that religious, but she has more of an Orthodox background. So I'm hoping PJ picks up that one as well, because I delve into that a little bit. But they're a great organization. I actually went to Israel this year with other PJ authors, and we had a wonderful experience. And I just joined a new initiative through them that's it's a Sephardic initiative, and that's a 3-year project where I hope to create maybe, I am actually going to try and delve into picture books now with whatever little time I have, and maybe try and write a Sephardic story or two, because that's part of my background. So. And if anyone wants to know, I'm half Turkish. So.
Did you have any formal training in learning how to draw, or did you just learn independently?
Good question. I actually had a lot of formal training. I had the ability already. I came from a very artistic family. My mother painted, and my father didn't work professionally as an artist, but he dabbled in it. He loved it. He loved graphic design, and he would do it on the side a little bit. And he loved architecture. Actually, my one daughter is studying to be an architect right now. I feel like there was a direct line from my dad to her. And my brother is a photographer, and my poor sister got none of that, but she's a great art appreciator. And then there was me, and I don't know where the cartooning thing came from, honestly, because no one in my family ever had any kind of aptitude for that or any real, I mean, I'm sure they appreciated it, but they never really showed it, and that was just my own. But we were all artistic, and we all had that innate ability, except for my sister. and I definitely had formal training. I took private art lessons. I was very lucky to have a wonderful private art teacher in the area that I grew up in, and who still teaches art to this day. And I visit her often. And I had a wonderful high school art teacher as well. And between the two of them, it was amazing. And then I studied illustration as well in college. So, yeah, lots of art.
We've got a question down here.
Sure.
What's the title for your new book?
Ooh, the new book? I can't tell you, but it will be revealed soon. So if you if you check my website probably in a few months, it's just terryliebenson.com, it will be revealed. And I can't tell you who it stars, but I will just give you a hint that it's this one also has a boy and a girl. I went to college at Washington University in St. Louis. Illustration. Yeah, I majored. Weirdly, I did not go to an art school. I really wanted to go to a liberal arts school with a strong art department. I wanted to get like a very well-rounded education, and that I did. Yeah, I think the only regret was they didn't really have a cartooning program. But I didn't know I wanted to be a cartoonist until I was probably a junior in college. And the cool thing was they let me create my own independent study course in cartooning, which was really nice. And they let me do my assignments, my illustration assignments in kind of a cartoony fashion. So yeah, it was good. Sure.
Will you do anything about challenged children and the interaction that they have in the general community?
Mm-hmm.
And the other question is, will you do anything on LGBTQ+?
Mm-hmm. To answer your first question, that would be great. I would love to. My only concern was it would require a lot of research on my part. And because I'm on a yearly deadline and I have to both write and illustrate the entire book, I'm not sure I would really do it justice, but I think it's a wonderful idea. And it might depend. It might depend on the challenges that the character has. I have dealt with certain things like, actually the book I'm writing now deals a bit with dyslexia. But I think it's a great idea, and if I keep doing the series for a while, I'm sure that would be introduced. And as for the LGBTQ+ type of characters, this is where I get into a struggle with my publisher and my editor, because I really, really want to do that. I want to have a main character, until now, I've been able to introduce a lot of side characters. I definitely have characters who fall into that category.
Leo's parents.
Yeah, Leo's parents. He has two dads. Also, there's a character named Juan, who's a gay character, and actually Brianna's Aunt Ashley. She is also she's also queer. So I've been able to get them in there. As far as the main character, every time I try, I feel like I'm like pushing against the walls, and it's not because the editor or the publisher don't want that. It's almost like they want, I don't know what it is. In the publishing world, they want you to have that lived experience as an author, and they feel like it might not be genuine enough if you don't have that lived experience, and so that's where the challenge lies. But I will probably keep pushing for that.
Any questions on this side of the room? This side of the room's been so quiet. Anybody else up here, Jean? Hold on one second. I'm going to have you do the microphone because I just learned that's how the live stream can hear you.
Oh, okay. Because I have a big voice, too. Okay. How did the name Pajama Diaries come about?
Right. We were talking about that. Pajama Diaries came about twofold. One, because the character Jill Kaplan is a work-at-home mom, and was even before COVID, and she theoretically could work in her pajamas if she wanted to, and she frequently did. But the other reason, which I like even more, is because it kind of conveys that like little sense of intimacy in the comic strip. Kind of like you're sort of sneaking a peek into her inner world, and it kind of hints at that as well.
Okay, one last question.
From a gender standpoint, with illustration and cartoonists, is there a leaning towards women or men? I just am not familiar with the industry.
Sure. I'm sorry, did you say the books or the comic strip?
Either, right?
Oh, either.
Like of this genre.
Sure. Well, I can answer both. The comic strip I developed it originally sort of as a mom-to-mom type of strip, which I thought was kind of lacking in the comics world. But it became more like parent-to-parent, I think. It was definitely geared more toward adults, although kids read it too, but it was definitely more geared for adults. And less gender-specific, I think, as it went on. But I did touch upon a lot of like feminist stuff, definitely feminist stuff, social issues, things like that. With the books, originally it was more geared. I wouldn't say geared toward girls because I don't think that books that star girls should be read by either boy or girls. It could be read by anyone, I think, and should be. It should be read equally by anyone who identifies as a boy or a girl. But I'm pretty sure it has more of an audience of girls, to be honest. Just because it stars more girls, probably girls identify with it a little more. It's all about feelings, a lot of feelings. So the only one so far that really gets away from that is truly Tyler. But still, it deals with a lot of feelings, but boys tend to gravitate more toward that. And no, actually, I think there was actually a survey done. Yeah, I forgot about that. There was a whole survey done of my books a couple years ago, where they did all these specific polls, like who was reading which books and how many and why and et cetera. And I think truly Tyler was the one book where it was split evenly between boys and girls. That's right. I forgot about that. Wow.
Well, we want to thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
And Jane, very, very much.
Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to tell you that in the lobby, Apple Tree Books will be selling the Emmy series, Emmy and Friends, and then Terry and her husband will be selling Pajama Diary books, and Terry will be available for signing books if you brought your own, or if you're going to buy them, she'll be available to do that. So I want to thank you both for that. I want to thank our committee, Anna Boardman, my co-chair, Jean Dreifert, Shelley Gilmore, Harriet Piccioni, Joy Fox, and Dara Steinberg. We want to let you know that our next TWA event is October 22nd, and in honor of Jane's sister, we're actually going to Top Golf, which was a suggestion that she made to me a few months ago. You can join TWA. We have envelopes out front for joining, and Janice will be out there. We also want to let you know that the library will be open, so you can check out the Temple Library. And the gift shop is also open, and we will be selling cards from the Temple Museum, a card collection it will also be selling. And we want to thank Sandy Lefkowitz for the delectable desserts that are outside and waiting for you all. So thank you very, very much for coming. Thank you both, and we'll see you outside.